wanna touch?
Yeah.
Do you wanna touch me there? Where?
Hey, I'm OK Kenedi. I'm an indie songwriter and artist from Atlanta, but I was not allowed to listen to secular music growing up. So, in an effort to save me and my reputation, these are my friends Rachel and Sarah. And on this podcast, we talk about bands and artists I should know, but probably don't.
I have a question, Kenedi. Yep. You love rock and roll?
I love rock and roll.
So that means that you probably have heard Joan Jett.
Was that like, did you rehearse that?
No, I actually literally just thought of that. I just felt like these intros needed to be a little like different and, as you can tell, awkward and funny.
Do you love rock and roll?
Do you?
I love rock and roll. For those of you who don't know, that's the song she's referencing.
So, do you know Joan Jett?
I do know Joan Jett. I love Joan Jett. I thank my mom for introducing me to Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Part of me wishes I knew about Joan Jett as a child, but I didn't really. So all that I'm about to say is stuff that I found out when I started researching her, and I feel like y'all have way more to talk about. So we'll just get through my little part, and then we'll
first
jump in.
Did you grow up with Joan Jett?
I did not grow up with Joan Jett. I feel
Did
like
I introduce you to Joan Jett?
to the most degree, yes. You introduced me to Joan Jett. To be honest with you, as a child, I loved Bad Reputation because it's the fight scene in Shrek. And I genuinely remember that and being like,
oh yeah,
watching that and just rewatching that scene over and over again just to hear that song. But I didn't know that was Joan Jett then.
Yeah.
Okay, take it away, Rachel.
Well, her name is Joan Larkin. Okay. She was actually from Pennsylvania, and when she was around 13, her family moved to California, and that just, again, boosted her opportunities to get into the whole music biz. And she changed her name to Joan Jett. She's legally in the 80s.
Do you know why?
It was said, and she said this, that it was because it was her mother's maiden name.
Yeah, her parents divorced, and she took her mom's maiden name.
Yes. However, I also read that she claimed later that that wasn't true, that she just said that. So it's like, I don't know, is it or not? So it's either or. The way she got into music was she was actually one of the founders of the Runaways.
Yeah.
And then that was like the very first band that she did. And they were not very popular in the U.S. Actually, their majority of their fan base was in Japan.
Yeah.
And so
they're also teenagers.
Yeah. However, in 1979, when they officially, the Runaways broke up because of musical and personal differences, like one person wanted to go into heavy metal, she wanted to do more punk type deal. She then started doing her solo career, and then that's how we get Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. So she started doing her self-titled debut solo album in Europe with a German record label. And she actually tried to sell her records back home in the U.S. However, every major label said no.
Yeah.
So that just...
As is common with a lot of legendary people, I have noticed.
They're
a lot of record labels do not want to sign them, and then they live to regret it.
Yeah. So because every major label said no, Jett and her collaborator, Kenny Langua, I think that's how you say that, decided to set up an independent label on their own.
I thought that was pretty freaking cool. When I was researching her, I found out basically no one wanted to release her debut record. Mm-hmm. So she started her own record label to release her debut record. I thought that was very stick it to the man, and I loved that.
I love that too.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you guys don't want to release my debut record? I'll start my own record company, and I'll do it myself.
So there you go. I love it.
That kind of stuff is so, that's just, I love that. She was turned down from 23 major label
wrong with you
records.
Guys? The Beatles were turned down too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I won't talk about them now, but I've noticed as we've been doing these podcasts, a lot of times these people we deem as iconic and legendary and the founding members of this genre of music were all typically turned down from record labels for several times before they landed something.
It's crazy because she started the Runaways when she was 16. And that's 3 years after she started learning how to play guitar. She was in it. Yeah. She started and was in it. And then, like Rachel said, she started touring around all of Europe, and then they had Cherry Bomb. That's where that song comes from. It's from the Runaways, which I had no idea, because everybody knows Cherry Bomb. Cherry Bomb, whatever. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that song. And Joan actually, like, later on in later records, like, covers that song again and makes it her own, which I think is one of the biggest power moves ever, because she, like, towards near the end of the Runaways, like, career, she had, like, a feeling they were going to fire her, so she just quit.
Wow.
They just quit. In 1979, it was done. And that was after, like, members had already, like, flaked off, and they were, like, just, like, continually placing them. I feel like they were just kind of like a revolving door, except for Jett. But, and then she got turned down from all those labels, starts a new one, just a completely new one, releases her own stuff. And then in 1981, that's when I Love Rock and Roll comes out. And that's still the biggest.
It is the biggest Jett song.
Joan Jett and the Blackheart song.
But it's not a Joan Jett song.
No.
It's a cover.
Yeah.
She did a lot of covers.
A lot.
I Love Rock and Roll is a cover. Crimson and Clover is a cover. It's a color. Crimson is a color. Crimson and Clover is a cover. There are several covers that she did. But
Yeah.
I Love Rock and Roll is a cover song by a British band called the Arrows. They released that in 1975, but Joan Jett heard it while she was touring with the Runaways. She thought about releasing it because she covered it, she loved it when she heard it. Then she went to cover it in studio and hated every minute of recording it, and so then was like, I don't want to release this song anymore, and her producer talked her into releasing it. Or else we would not have Joan Jett's version of I Love Rock and Roll, which is the version, if we're all being honest, that's the version we all know.
Oh, yeah.
It's the version we all know and love.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just like when we talked about with Michael Jackson and Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. Had Michael Jackson not convinced Queen to release that song, we wouldn't have that song. Had Joan Jett's producer not convinced her to release her cover of I Love Rock and Roll, we wouldn't have that song either. So props to the people in the background that push an artist to release a really incredible song. Because I think a lot of times an artist zones in on what they're doing and goes, this is not good, I don't want to do it, it doesn't deserve to be released. And a lot of times they need someone on an outside perspective to say, no, this is really awesome. It's going to sound great on your record, or it's going to be a great single. You should totally release it. I have a feeling that Another One Bites the Dust by Queen and I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts are not the only examples of that happening.
No, absolutely. Because it's like almost artists' nature to be hypercritical of what they make. And then they, like what you said, they like get into it. I hit my microphone again. Sorry, Michaela. And then they can't see anything else. But I love that there's always somebody behind them, like pushing them.
Yeah.
And then, but also, it's like you have Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, and then you have Joan Jett. Solo. Because in the same year that I Love Rock and Roll came out, Bad Reputation comes out. And one's by her and the Blackhearts, and one's just by her. And that's a lot to keep up with. because I was looking for Bad Reputation just the other day, and I couldn't find it until I looked for just specifically Joan Jett. And that has Bad Reputation on it, which is one of the best songs ever, and just fully encompasses teenage angst. And Do You Want to Touch? Which I freaking love that song. Do you want to touch?
Yeah.
Do you want to touch?
Yeah.
Do you want to touch me there? Where? Oh my gosh. That song is so freaking good.
You do know that's also another cover.
That is the other song. That's
That
a
is the
cover.
other-
Is that a cover? Are
Yeah.
you serious?
It's by Gary Glitter. That's how, Glitter, I think.
Yeah, a lot of her stuff is covers.
She did them better though. I haven't even heard the originals, but I know she did them better. I just know it. And then, like, I'm really glad that you brought up the point that if she hadn't been pushed to do I Love Rock and Roll, we basically wouldn't have Joan Jett, because after that album, she really didn't have a lot of successful albums after that. It was kind of just like okay stuff until 1988 when she released Up Your Alley, which has I Hate Myself for Loving You on it,
I love
which
that song.
like brought her back.
Hate myself.
That brought her back into the spotlight. which is still a really, really good song. And on one of her albums, like previous to that, is actually just like mainly covers. Like she covers like Sex Pistols and AC/DC and stuff like that, which is crazy that she didn't write a lot of original stuff. She did a lot of cover, like Crimson and Clover cover.
That's such a good cover.
Such a good song.
Have you heard that one?
No.
I want to introduce you to that.
Okay.
God, that song
I'm
is
going to
so
evangelize Joan Jett to you.
Okay.
good. That song is so good.
Yeah. If I could play that in this podcast, I would, but we get copyright flag for that. But you guys should go listen to Crimson and Clover.
That song is so good.
There's feeling it.
Is that your favorite Joan Jett song? One of my favorites. It's definitely one of my favorites.
It's one of my favorites. I mean, it just starts. And and it is so good. No, I mean like it's just full on just like boom, here's the song. No intro, no nothing. It just starts.
It's a whole like the whole song is like just a very specific vibe that I haven't found anything else that touches on that.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, but she like continues to release albums. Like her last album was just last year.
Oh.
And she was on Miley Cyrus's Plastic Hearts record. She does features and stuff like that. Like she's still out there in freaking skin tight leather pants and wearing the heck out of those things and just rocking out.
Yeah.
She was such a rocker.
She is just like the definition of a rock star.
She is.
Yeah.
And
first of her kind, really.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say.
I remember, like, my mom and I recently talked about Joan Jett because I told her we were going to do a podcast on her. And she was telling me, she was raised in the 80s and was, like, loves 80s rock and roll and grew up with all of that stuff. So she was telling me when Joan Jett came out and, there was videos of Joan Jett playing guitar and singing like that. She's like, she had never seen a woman do that. No one had ever seen a woman do that. Like, it was like, she said when she first saw Joan Jett on a video, she did a double take. She was like, that's a woman. They had seen all these men, with the long hair and the 80s rock and roll look doing all that stuff and acting that way. They'd never seen a woman do that. And so she said in a lot of ways, her and Pat Benatar were very revolutionary in that they were the first of their kind to have a stage presence like that and a look like that, a grungy, musky rock and roll look as a woman. And I remember having that conversation with her, and then she showed me some of the videos, and I was like, wow, yeah, like, you really didn't see women act like that or sing music like that or dress like that or play guitar like that ever until they came around. And sometimes I think when someone's that controversial, it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it makes their start a little slower, but it makes their impact bigger. And so I remember we were just talking about this, and it's a fun fact that I read, but Joan Jett started teaching herself guitar. At 13, she got her first guitar. She went to take guitar lessons, and they wanted to teach her like classic folk music, and she was not going to have that. So she quit her lessons and taught herself guitar. And the Rolling Stone magazine put her in a list of the top 100 best guitar players of all time. So that's crazy. She's self-taught and is considered one of the greatest guitar players of all time. To me, that's crazy, but I don't know if you knew this. You're a drummer for me. So she taught herself drums at 9 years old.
Really?
Yes.
She was a drummer too?
She's a drummer too.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
She's so bad. You know what I mean?
And well, speaking of that, not only was she like, I want to take guitar lessons. Never mind, you don't teach me the way I want to be taught. I quit. I'm going to teach myself. She also went to take voice lessons and by this professional opera singer. But they threw her out and wouldn't teach her because of the way she dressed. So that's crazy to me. So you gotta like, she's a very like strong-willed, I'm gonna do this no matter what you say, and if you won't do it the way I want you to do it or the way I think it should be done, I'll do it myself. I respect that. So no record label wants to sign me to help me release my debut album, I'll start my own record label and I'll do it myself. You don't want to teach me guitar the way I want to be taught, I'll teach myself. You don't like the way I dress, so you won't teach me voice lessons, I'll sing without voice lessons. That it's all like, I mean, rock and roll to its core is Joan Jett.
You don't want me to play rock and roll? I'm going to be the queen of rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's insane.
But Tina Turner's the queen of rock and roll.
I've heard people say she's the queen of rock
I
and
saw
roll.
that too, so that's very controversial.
And the godmother
know.
of punk.
Yeah.
And the first riot girl.
Yep.
Also, she was the first androgynous woman to come out like that.
Really?
Yeah, because you have like Bowie, who was really androgynous. You had like men who were doing it. You have Queen, who was, like doing the feminization of stuff. But she was the first woman that I can like recall being masculine in the music industry. Masculine and feminine at the same time.
I mean, she was still always very feminine.
She wore heels, but have you just seen her energy and the rock starness and stuff that's typically coined as masculine? But she's not. She's like both masculine and feminine. She wrote a song called Androgynous about being androgynous.
She wrote it.
That's a good question. That is a really good question. She might not have written it.
Yeah, I know that song. I did see it.
But to me, that's like, she was really the first of her kind to be.
I mean, you just didn't
both.
see. You didn't see women like that cutthroat.
Mm-mm.
But then after Joan Jett, you start seeing women that cutthroat.
Oh yeah.
Someone has to do it first.
Yeah.
Someone has to come out first.
She paved the way.
Yeah.
She definitely did.
I'm a big Joan Jett fan, but I'm an 80s rock and roll fan.
Yeah.
And I remember playing I Love Rock and Roll on my first, what is that thing? Guitar Hero game. Okay. That was also a loophole I had getting around not being able to listen to secular music was Guitar Hero. I learned a lot of my fun 80s rock and roll songs from Guitar Hero, and I'm going to tell you right now, I owned I Love Rock and Roll on Guitar Hero.
Oh, I know you did.
I did so hard.
I know
Sweat.
you did.
All I am. All I am in that
Just
performance.
stay right there.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, maybe I'll become more of a Joan Jett fan when you start to evangelize Joan Jett to me.
Joan Jett's so good.
So.
Rachel, we gotta get your like 80s rock and roll version of you out. We gotta.
have
We
to.
gotta get you into some 80s rock and roll music. So it's like, this is saving OK Kennedy, but I love Joan Jett. Like, I already take inspiration from Joan Jett. Obviously.
Yes.
Look
With
at my what I wear and look at,
Look at the whole, you don't want to do this? Fine, I'll do it myself.
I was born doing that though.
Yeah, you
know?
were.
So I'm gonna evangelize this to you, okay? We're gonna make you an 80s rock and roll fan.
We'll see if we get there.
We're gonna do it, guys.
I don't know if we're gonna get there.
We're gonna save Rachel. We're gonna make her an 80s rock and roll fan. Starting with Joan Jett.
We're gonna
Mhm.
hope. Yep.
We're gonna do it. I'm confident.
There you go. So I feel like you already know what to take away from Joan Jett.
Everything.
There you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely everything from Joan Jett. Take everything. Take it all.
Just continue to write your own music, though. That's
Well,
my
yeah.
one takeaway.
That's the one difference is I write most everything.
Yeah.
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 And if you're going to cover a song, make it better than the original.
There you go. Joan Jett, everyone.
Done.
OK Kennedy, everyone.